Billionaire arrived in Las Vegas for a major deal until he ran into his ex with his son. The parking lot outside the laundromat on Eastern Avenue was half empty, which meant Noelle could pull in without circling. Small victories. She cut the engine and sat there for a second, hands still on the wheel, listening to the ticking sound the car made when it cooled down. The AC had given up somewhere around June, and now it was October, and she still hadn't gotten it fixed. Another thing on the list. "Mom, I know. We're going to be late." "We're not going to be late." She checked her phone. 4:30. They had time. "Grab the basket." Her son, Liam, was already unbuckling, already reaching for the laundry basket wedged between the back seat and his booster seat. 8 years old, and he moved like he was managing her, not the other way around. She watched him in the rearview mirror, his face scrunched up in concentration as he wrestled with the basket handle. "You forgot the socks again," he said. "I didn't forget anything. They're in my backpack. You put 'em there this morning." She had. Damn it. She grabbed the backpack from the passenger seat, unzipped the front pocket. 2 pairs of socks, still balled up from last week. Liam was already out of the car, basket balanced on his hip like a tiny, judgmental adult. The heat hit her the second she stepped out. Dry, relentless. The kind of heat that made everything feel slower, like the whole city was moving through syrup. Las Vegas in October was supposed to be better than summer, but the sun still felt personal, like it was targeting her specifically. "Come on," Liam said, already halfway to the door. She locked the car and followed, squinting against the glare off the pavement. The laundromat was the same as always, fluorescent lights that buzzed too loud, the smell of detergent and something vaguely burnt, a row of washing machines that only half worked. There were 3 other people inside, an older woman folding towels with military precision, a guy in a work uniform scrolling his phone, and someone she didn't recognize unloading a dryer in the back. Liam dumped the basket on the table near the machines. "I'll sort it. You don't have to." "I know how." He did. He'd been helping since he was 6, mostly because she'd needed the extra hands and he'd never complained. She watched him separate lights from darks, his small fingers working methodically. Too methodical for a kid his age, too aware. She loaded the first machine, added detergent, fed quarters into the slot. The machine groaned to life, water sloshing against the drum. Liam was already at the second machine, stuffing in his school shirts. "Not too much," she said. "I know." The door chimed. She didn't look up right away, just kept loading, kept moving. But something made her glance at the window, at the reflection in the glass. A man getting out of a rental car. Dark slacks, white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Tall, the kind of tall that made people look twice. Her hands stopped moving. She knew that walk, knew the way he tilted his head slightly when he was thinking, knew the exact shade of his hair, brown with grey, starting at the temples, more grey than the last time she'd seen him. 9 years ago. Her heart didn't skip. It dropped. Straight down like an elevator with the cables cut. Graham. She turned back to the machine, hands working on autopilot now. Liam was saying something about the quarters, about how one of the machines ate his dollar last time, but his voice sounded far away. Underwater. Graham was crossing the parking lot, heading toward the laundromat. Of course he was, because the universe had a sick sense of timing. She didn't panic. Panic was a luxury she'd stopped affording herself a long time ago. Instead, she kept loading. Kept breathing. Kept pretending that seeing him again didn't feel like someone had just cracked open her ribcage and let all the air out. "Mum." "Yeah." "The quarters." She handed them over without looking. Liam fed them into the machine, pressed the button. The washer started up with a mechanical groan. The door chimed again. She didn't turn around, didn't need to. She could feel him, the way you feel a storm coming, that pressure change in the air that makes your teeth ache. Liam looked up, looked at the door, looked back at her. "Do we know that guy?" Her throat tightened. She glanced over her shoulder, just for a second, just long enough to confirm what she already knew. Graham was standing just inside the door, one hand still on the handle. He wasn't looking at her, He was looking at Liam, and in that moment, the exact second their eyes met, she watched something shift in his face. Not shock, not surprise, something slower, something that looked like recognition, but too late. Years too late. Liam tilted his head, studying Graham with the same careful attention he gave everything. "Mom?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. Graham's mouth opened slightly, like he was about to say something, then closed. He looked at her, finally, actually looked at her, and she saw it all right there. The years, the absence, the choice he'd made without ever asking what it would cost. She turned back to the washing machine, closed the lid. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were pressing in. "Mom," Liam said again, quieter this time. "We're good," she said. Her voice came out steady, flat. "Let's wait outside." She grabbed her purse, grabbed Liam's hand, walked toward the door without looking back. Graham stepped aside as they passed. He smelled the same, something clean and expensive that didn't belong in a laundromat on Eastern Avenue. She didn't say anything, didn't acknowledge him, just kept walking. Kept breathing, kept her hand tight around Liam's. They made it to the car before Liam spoke. "Who was that?" She unlocked the doors, climbed in, waited for Liam to buckle himself in. "Nobody," she said. Liam looked at her in the rearview mirror, those eyes, Graham's eyes, the same exact shade of grey-blue, staring back at her with a question he was too smart not to ask eventually. "Okay," he said. But he didn't believe her. She started the car. The engine sputtered twice before catching. She pulled out of the parking lot, hands steady on the wheel, eyes on the road. In the mirror, she saw Graham standing outside the laundromat, hands in his pockets, watching them drive away. She didn't look back. The light at the intersection turned red. She stopped, foot on the brake. Counting seconds, 30 seconds, 40. The sun was lower now, cutting across the windshield at an angle that made her squint. Liam was quiet in the back seat. She could still feel her pulse in her throat. The light changed. She drove. Graham stood in the parking lot for a full minute after her car disappeared down Eastern Avenue. The sun was brutal on his neck, and he'd left his sunglasses in the rental. He didn't move, just stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at the empty street, like if he waited long enough, the last 5 minutes might rewind themselves. They didn't. Inside the laundromat, the washing machines hummed. He could see his reflection in the glass door, rumpled shirt, hair that needed cutting, the kind of tired that didn't come from jet lag. He looked exactly like what he was, a man who'd shown up 9 years too late. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out. 3 missed calls from his VP of operations, 2 emails marked urgent, a text from his assistant asking if he'd reviewed the acquisition terms. He put the phone back in his pocket without reading any of it. The kid, Liam. He'd heard her say the name, heard it clear as anything. 8 years old, maybe. Dark hair. That serious face kids get when they're trying to figure out if adults are lying to them. And those eyes. Jesus. Those eyes were his, the same grey-blue his mother used to call stormy, the same ones that stared back at him every morning when he shaved. He'd known. The second he saw the kid's face, he'd known, which meant he'd had a son for 8 years and hadn't known, hadn't asked, hadn't checked, hadn't cared enough to find out. The shame sat heavy in his chest, dense and immovable, like something he'd swallowed that wouldn't go down. His hotel was off the strip, one of those business places with conference rooms and a gym nobody used. He drove back on autopilot, made 2 wrong turns, ended up in a residential neighborhood before he realized he'd missed the exit. By the time he pulled into the hotel parking garage, it was almost 6. His room was on the 14th floor, beige walls, beige carpet, a desk with a lamp that flickered when you turned it on. He dropped his keys on the nightstand and sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, hands pressed against his face. He'd come to Vegas to close a deal, a clean acquisition, a mid-sized solar installation company with contracts across Nevada and Arizona. The kind of move that made sense on paper, that his board had approved without question. 3 days of meetings, maybe 4. Sign the documents, shake hands, fly back to Denver. Simple. Except now, nothing about this trip felt simple. His phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen. His assistant. He declined the call. Then he opened his contacts, scrolled until he found the name he hadn't looked at in years. Noel Hart. He'd saved it back when they were... what? Dating? Sleeping together? It hadn't been serious. At least that's what he'd told himself. A few months, nothing committed. Both of them clear about what it was and what it wasn't. She'd been 27, working nights at a lab, taking classes during the day, too tired for anything complicated. He'd been in town for a project, staying longer than he'd planned because the work was good and she'd been real. That was the word that came to mind now, sitting in this forgettable hotel room, staring at her name on his phone. Real in a way that most people in his life weren't. Direct, no bullshit. The kind of person who said exactly what she meant and expected you to do the same. He'd liked that about her. And then the project ended, and he went back to Denver, and they'd texted a few times, casual surface-level stuff, and then they hadn't. He'd moved on. She'd probably done the same. Or so he'd thought. He stared at the number, pressed the call button before he could talk himself out of it. It rang 4 times, then voicemail. Her voice, clipped and professional. "You've reached Noel. Leave a message." He hung up. What the hell was he supposed to say? He didn't sleep, didn't even try. Just lay on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows shift as cars passed on the street below. At 2 in the morning, he got up and stood at the window. The city glowed in the distance. The Strip, all those lights people flew in from everywhere to see. He'd been to Vegas a dozen times for work, and had never once walked down that stretch of casinos and neon. It wasn't real. Just a facade designed to take your money and send you home lighter. This part of the city, though, the neighborhoods east of the Strip, the streets where people actually lived, this felt real. Too real. He thought about Liam, about the way the kid had looked at him, curious but cautious, like he was trying to solve a problem without enough information. He thought about Noel, about the way she'd walked past him without saying a word, her hand tight around Liam's, her face completely blank. She hadn't been surprised to see him. Not exactly. More like she'd been bracing for it, like she'd run through this scenario in her head 100 times and already knew how it would go. He wondered if she'd ever planned to tell him. Then he wondered if he'd given her any reason to think he'd want to know. The answer to that was pretty clear. The next morning he skipped the meeting. He texted his VP. Something came up, reschedule for tomorrow. Then he drove back to Eastern Avenue. The laundromat was closed. He sat in the parking lot anyway, engine running, AC blasting. There was a grocery store across the street, a tire shop next to it, a row of houses with chain-link fences and yards that were more dirt than grass. Normal. Unremarkable. The kind of neighborhood where people went to work and came home and didn't expect strangers to show up asking questions about their lives. He didn't know what he was doing here. Didn't have a plan, just couldn't sit in that hotel room anymore, staring at his phone, pretending he could go back to Denver and forget what he'd seen. A car pulled into the lot. Not hers. A sedan with a dent in the bumper. An older guy got out, unlocked the laundromat, flipped the sign to open. Graham turned off the engine, got out. Inside, the place smelled like industrial detergent and something faintly floral. Air freshener, maybe, trying to cover up the damp. The guy behind the counter looked up from his phone. "Help you?" "I'm looking for someone," Graham said. "A woman, dark hair, about this tall." He held his hand up. "She was here yesterday afternoon, with a kid." The guy's expression didn't change. "Lot of people come through here. Her name's Noel." "Don't know any Noel." Graham pulled out his wallet, set 2 20s on the counter. "I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just need to talk to her." The guy looked at the cash, looked at Graham, then he picked up the 20s and tucked them into his shirt pocket. "She comes in Thursdays," he said, "around 4:30, like clockwork." "Thursdays. That's what I said." Graham nodded. "Thanks." "Sure." The guy went back to his phone, already done with the conversation. Graham walked back to his car, sat there for a minute, hands on the wheel. Today was Tuesday. He went to the meeting that afternoon, sat through 2 hours of contract negotiations, nodding in the right places, signing where they told him to sign. Afterward, His VP asked if everything was okay. "Fine," Graham said. "You sure? You seem distracted." "I'm good." He wasn't good. That night, he sat in a bar on Flamingo Road, some dive with sticky floors and a jukebox that only played country. He ordered a whiskey, neat, and drank it slower than he should have. The bartender tried to make conversation. Graham didn't bite. He kept thinking about Liam, about what the kid's life looked like. School probably, soccer or basketball or whatever 8-year-olds did now. A bedroom somewhere with posters on the walls, toys he'd outgrown but hadn't thrown away yet. A routine that didn't include him, a whole life that didn't include him. He ordered another whiskey. By the time he got back to the hotel, it was past midnight. He lay down fully clothed, phone on the pillow next to his head. Thursday. He'd go back Thursday. And then what? He didn't have an answer for that. The AC unit rattled. Noelle didn't tell anyone about seeing Graham, not her co-worker who asked why she'd been quiet all through Tuesday's shift. Not her neighbor who noticed she'd forgotten to bring in the mail 2 days in a row. Definitely not Liam, who kept watching her like he was waiting for her to explain something she hadn't said yet. She went to work, came home, made dinner, helped with homework. Put Liam to bed and then sat on the couch with a glass of wine she didn't finish, staring at the TV without seeing it. Wednesday night, Liam asked the question she'd been avoiding. "Mom." "Yeah?" "That guy at the laundromat." She kept her eyes on the screen. Some cooking show. Someone was making pasta from scratch. "What about him?" "Do I know him?" "No." "He looked at me weird." "Weird how?" Liam shrugged, pulling his knees up to his chest. He was wearing his favorite pajamas, the ones with the planets on them that were getting too small, but he refused to stop wearing. "I don't know. Like he knew me or something." Her chest tightened. "He doesn't." "Okay." But he didn't sound convinced. She reached over, ruffled his hair. "You worry too much, you know that? You say that a lot." "Because it's true." He leaned against her shoulder, and she wrapped her arm around him, holding on maybe a little tighter than necessary. He smelled like the cheap shampoo she bought in bulk from the grocery store, and something else. Kid sweat, grass, the specific scent of an 8-year-old who'd spent recess running around. "Can we go to the park tomorrow?" he asked. "After school?" "Yeah, we'll see." That means yes. It means we'll see. He grinned up at her, that smile that always got her. So, yes. Go to bed. He went, still grinning. Thursday afternoon, she picked him up from school at 3. He was waiting by the fence with his backpack dragging on the ground, talking to another kid about something that required a lot of hand gestures. When he saw her car, he said goodbye and jogged over, climbing into the back seat with the kind of energy that made her tired just watching. "Park?" he asked, buckling himself in. "Yeah, for a bit." "Yes." He pumped his fist. Pumped. The park was 10 minutes away. A small square of grass and playground equipment wedged between a residential street and a drainage ditch. Nothing fancy. Swings that squeaked, a slide that got too hot in the sun, a few benches under a ramada where parents sat and watched their kids. There were maybe 6 other families there when they arrived, a toddler screaming on the swings, 2 girls playing some elaborate make-believe game near the jungle gym, a dad pushing a stroller in circles while talking on his phone. Liam ran straight for the swings. She followed slower, settling onto one of the benches with her purse in her lap. The sun was lower now, late afternoon bleeding into early evening. The air was finally starting to cool. She watched Liam swing higher, his legs pumping, his hair flying back. He was getting taller. She kept having to buy new jeans because he grew out of them before they wore out. Soon he'd be 9, then 10, then a teenager who wouldn't want to go to the park with her anymore. The thought made her chest ache in a way she didn't want to examine too closely. "Mom, watch." She looked up. He was standing on the swing now, balancing. "Sit down," she called. "I'm good." "Liam." He sat grinning. She shook her head, but she was smiling too. That's when she saw him. Graham, standing near the edge of the park, by the drainage ditch fence, hands in his pockets, watching. Her stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to be here, wasn't supposed to... He saw her looking. Raised one hand slightly, like a wave but not quite, more like an acknowledgement. "I see you. I know you see me." She didn't wave back. Liam jumped off the swing, landed hard, stumbled, but caught himself. He turned, ready to run to the slide, and that's when he noticed Graham, too. He stopped, tilted his head. "Hey, that's the guy from the laundromat." Noel stood up. "Liam." But Liam was already walking toward him, curious, fearless in the way only kids who didn't know better could be. "Liam, wait." He didn't wait. Graham didn't move. Just stood there, watching Liam approach with an expression Noel couldn't read from this distance. She followed, her legs moving even though everything in her wanted to grab Liam and leave. Liam stopped a few feet from Graham, looking up at him with that serious, analytical face he made when he was trying to figure something out. "You know my mom, right?" Liam asked. Graham glanced at her, then back at Liam. "Yeah." "How?" Graham's voice caught. He cleared his throat. "We knew each other a long time ago." "Oh," Liam processed this. "You look sad." "Liam," Noel said quietly. "What?" "He does." Graham's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. "You're observant." "My mom says I'm nosy." "I said observant," Noel corrected, even though that wasn't true. She had said nosy. Liam shrugged. "Same thing." He looked back at Graham. "Why are you here?" Graham hesitated. His hands were still in his pockets, and she could see his shoulders tense under his shirt. "I wanted to talk to your mom." "About what?" "Liam," Noel said again, sharper this time. "Go play. But now." He recognized that tone, didn't argue, just gave Graham one more curious look, then jogged back toward the swings. They stood there, 5 feet apart, the sound of kids playing filling the silence between them. "You followed me," she said finally. "No, He stopped. "Okay. Yeah, I guess I did." "That's not okay." "I know. You can't just show up. You can't—" Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. She crossed her arms. "What do you want, Graham?" "I don't know." "That's not good enough. I know that too." She waited. He didn't say anything else, just stood there looking at her like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't add up. "Is he mine?" he asked finally. The question sat between them, heavy and unavoidable. "Yeah," she said, "he's yours." Graham's jaw tightened. He looked over at Liam, who was back on the swings, kicking his legs. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Why would I?" "Because—" He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "Because I had a right to know." "You had a right?" She laughed, sharp and humorless. "You left, Graham. You went back to Denver and you didn't call. Didn't text, didn't ask if I was okay. You made it pretty clear what we were and what we weren't." "That doesn't mean—" "It means exactly that." Her voice was quiet now, controlled. "I found out I was pregnant 6 weeks after you left. I tried calling twice, you didn't answer. So I stopped trying." His face went pale. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't, that's the point." She took a breath, steadying herself. "I'm not angry, Graham. I was for a while, but I'm not anymore. I made my choice. I chose to do this alone because that's what the situation was. And we've been fine, me and Liam, we've been fine. He deserves to know who I am. He deserves a lot of things." She looked at him directly, and for the first time she let him see exactly how tired she was. What he doesn't deserve is someone showing up because they feel guilty. If you're here to make yourself feel better, you should leave now. Graham didn't respond right away, just stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at the ground between them. "I screwed up," he said finally. "Yeah. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if you can." He looked up at her then, and she saw something in his face she hadn't expected. Not defensiveness, not excuses, just raw, honest recognition of what he'd done. Or more accurately, what he hadn't done. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said quietly. "I'm just asking for a chance to—" He stopped. "To be here. If that's possible." She wanted to say no, wanted to tell him it was too late, that he'd lost that chance the moment he stopped answering her calls 9 years ago. But she looked over at Liam, swinging higher now, his face turned up toward the sky, and she thought about all the times he'd asked about his dad, all the times she'd given vague, careful answers that didn't really say anything. "I need to think about it," she said. "Okay. And if I say yes, it's not for you, it's for him." "I know." She studied him for a long moment, the grey at his temples, the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He looked older, tired, like the years had been harder on him than he'd admit. Good, part of her thought, let them be hard. "I have your number," she said. "I'll call you." "When?" "When I'm ready." He nodded slowly. "Okay." She turned to go, then stopped. "Graham." "Yeah?" "If you're not serious about this, if there's any part of you that's going to change your mind and disappear again, don't do it. Don't show up for him if you're just going to leave, because I can handle a lot, but I won't let you hurt him, understand?" "I understand." She held his gaze for another second, then walked back toward Liam. "Time to go," she called. "Already?" "Yeah, come on." He dragged his feet the whole way to the car, complaining about how they just got there. She let him complain. It was easier than thinking about the conversation she just had. As she buckled herself into the driver's seat, she glanced back toward the park. Graham was still standing there, watching them leave. She started the engine. Graham didn't hear from her for 3 days. He kept his phone on him constantly, in meetings, at dinner, on the nightstand, while he stared at the ceiling at 2 in the morning. Every time it buzzed, his pulse spiked. Every time it was someone else. His VP kept asking when they were flying back to Denver. Graham kept saying soon. "We closed the deal," his VP said on Saturday morning, standing in the hotel lobby with his rolling suitcase already packed. "There's nothing left to do here." "I know. So? I'm staying a few more days." His VP frowned. "For what?" Graham didn't answer, just shook his hand, told him he'd see him next week, and watched him walk out to the cab waiting by the curb. Then he went back up to his room and waited. The call came Sunday afternoon. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, laptop open to emails he wasn't reading, when his phone finally rang with her name on the screen. He answered on the second ring. "Noelle." "Hey." Her voice was careful, measured. "You still in Vegas?" "Yeah." "You got plans tomorrow?" "No." She was quiet for a second. He could hear something in the background. Dishes, maybe. Water running. "Liam has soccer practice, 4 o'clock at the fields off Boulder Highway. You can come if you want. Watch." That's it. No talking to him unless he talks to you first. "Okay." "I'm serious, Graham. You sit on the sidelines, you watch, and you don't make this complicated." "I won't. And if this goes wrong, if you upset him or make him uncomfortable, you leave immediately." "Understood." Another pause. 4 o'clock, don't be late." She hung up before he could respond. He sat there holding the phone, staring at the blank screen. Tomorrow. 4 o'clock. He set an alarm, even though he knew there was no chance he'd forget. The soccer fields were exactly what she'd described. A stretch of patchy grass surrounded by chain-link fence, with portable goals that looked like they'd been there since the 90s. There were 4 fields total, each one hosting a different practice. Kids everywhere running in packs, parents clustered in small groups along the sidelines. Graham arrived 15 minutes early, parked in the gravel lot, watched families unload from their cars, kids in cleats, parents carrying water bottles and folding chairs. Normal, mundane. The kind of scene he'd driven past 1,000 times without thinking about. He saw Noelle's car pull in at 3:58. Liam got out first, already in his uniform, red jersey, black shorts, shin guards visible under his socks. He said something to Noelle that Graham couldn't hear, then jogged toward one of the fields where other kids were gathered. Noelle grabbed a canvas chair from the trunk, slung a bag over her shoulder, and headed toward the sideline. She saw Graham standing by his car and gave a small nod. Not welcoming, just acknowledging. He followed at a distance, hands in his pockets. She set up her chair near the center line, away from the cluster of other parents. Graham stopped a few feet behind her, standing because he hadn't thought to bring a chair. "You can sit," she said without looking at him. "I'm good. Suit yourself." Practice started. The coach, a guy in his 30s with a whistle around his neck and a clipboard, called the kids over, had them run drills, dribbling around cones, passing exercises. Shooting on goal. Liam was decent. Not the best on the team, but not the worst either. He had good control, kept his head up when he ran, listened to the coach, worked hard even when he messed up. Graham watched him the whole time, this kid he didn't know, this person he'd accidentally created and then walked away from. Liam laughed at something another kid said. wiped sweat off his forehead with his jersey, kept playing. "He's good," Graham said quietly. Noelle glanced back at him. "He practices." "How long has he been playing?" 3 years. She turned back to the field. "He wanted to try it. I wasn't sure we could afford it, but they have scholarships for families that need help, so—" The words sat there between them. Families that need help. He heard what she wasn't saying. "Noelle, don't." She didn't raise her voice, didn't even look at him. "Just watch." So he did. Halfway through practice, Liam glanced over at the sideline. His eyes found Noelle first, then shifted to Graham. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just looked for a second, then went back to the drill. Graham felt something twist in his chest. After practice, the coach gathered the kids for a huddle. They broke with a cheer Graham couldn't make out. Liam jogged over to where Noelle was folding her chair, his face flushed, hair sticking to his forehead. "Did you see my goal?" he asked. "I saw it." "Nice shot." Liam grinned. Then he looked at Graham. "You watched?" "Yeah." "The whole time?" "Yeah." Liam considered this. "Cool." That was it. He grabbed his water bottle from Noelle's bag, took a long drink and started walking toward the parking lot. Noelle packed up her things, shouldered the bag. "That's more than I thought you'd get," she said quietly. "Is it enough?" "For now." She looked at him directly. "He's testing you, seeing if you're going to stick around. Don't make me regret this." "I won't." She walked away, following Liam toward their car. Graham stood there until they drove off. Then he got in his rental and sat with his hands on the wheel, staring at the empty field. "Cool," Liam had said. It was something. Graham showed up to the next practice on Wednesday, and the one after that on Saturday. He brought a folding chair this time, set it up a respectful distance from Noelle. Didn't try to make conversation, just watched. Liam started acknowledging him more. A wave when he scored. A thumbs up after a good save. Small things. But they mattered. After the Saturday practice, Liam walked over while Noelle was talking to another parent. "You're still here," Liam said. "Yeah. You live here now or something?" "Just visiting." "For how long?" Graham hesitated. "I don't know yet." Liam kicked at the grass with his cleat. "My mom says you guys used to know each other." "We did." "Were you friends?" "Yeah, something like that." "But you left." The words weren't accusatory, just factual. Kids had a way of cutting through bullshit without even trying. "Yeah," Graham said, "I did." "Why?" "Because I—" He stopped. There wasn't a good answer. Not one that would make sense to an 8-year-old. "I made a mistake." Liam looked up at him. Those grey-blue eyes so much like his own, it hurt. "Are you going to leave again?" Graham crouched down so they were at eye level. "I'm going to try really hard not to." "That's not a yes." "No, it's not." Liam studied him for a long moment. "Okay. Okay? My mom says people mess up sometimes. She says what matters is if they fix it." He shrugged. "So I guess we'll see if you fix it." Before Graham could respond, Liam jogged off toward Noelle, who was waiting by the car. Graham stood slowly, his knees protesting. He felt like he'd just been evaluated by the toughest judge he'd ever faced, and he wasn't sure he'd passed. That night Noelle called him. "He asked about you," she said without preamble. "What did he say?" "He wanted to know if you were going to keep coming to practice." "What did you tell him?" "That I didn't know." She was quiet for a second. "Are you?" "Yeah." "Even after you go back to Denver?" The question hung there, loaded. "I'm not going back," Graham said. "Not yet." "Graham, I talked to my board. I can work remotely for a while. Maybe longer. They're not happy about it, but—" He stopped. "I need to be here." She didn't say anything for a long time. He could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could picture her standing in her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, trying to figure out if he was serious. "This isn't temporary," he said. "I'm not showing up for a few weeks and then disappearing. I'm trying to figure out how to make this work. Permanently. You don't have to—" "Yeah, I do." Another pause, then quietly, "He likes you." Graham closed his eyes. "He barely knows me." "I know. But he's curious. And he's—" She hesitated. "He's wanted this, a dad. He's never said it directly, but I can tell. And now you're here, and I don't know if that's the best thing or the worst thing. I'm not gonna hurt him, Noelle. You already have, just by not being here. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. I'm giving you a chance to fix that. Don't waste it. I won't. She hung up. Graham sat on the edge of the hotel bed, phone still in his hand. Outside, the city hummed, cars on the street, someone laughing in the hallway. The distant sound of slot machines from a casino he couldn't see. He pulled up his email, found the thread with his assistant. Cancel my return flight. I'm staying. He hit send before he could second-guess it. Then he lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the AC unit rattle in the window. For the first time in years, he had no idea what he was doing. But he was here. That had to count for something. The AC rattled again. He closed his eyes. 3 weeks later, Graham moved out of the hotel. He found a furnished apartment in Henderson, 20 minutes from Noelle's place. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, basic furniture, a kitchen that didn't have enough cabinet space. The lease was month to month because he still didn't know how long this would last. How long she'd let it last. He set up a desk in the second bedroom, hung video calls with his team in Denver, and learned to work around Liam's schedule. Mornings were for conference calls, afternoons were for soccer practice or homework help, or just sitting on the sidelines watching an 8-year-old figure out who he was. It wasn't the life Graham had built for himself over the past 20 years, but it was the one he had now. On a Tuesday afternoon in early November, Noelle called and asked if he wanted to help with homework. Math, she said. He's stuck on fractions. I've explained it 3 times and he's still not getting it. I can try. You sure it's fractions? They're annoying. I'm sure. She texted him the address. He already knew it, had driven past it more times than he'd admit, and told him to come by at 5. He showed up at 4:55 with a notebook and a pencil, feeling like a kid himself showing up for a test he hadn't studied for. Noelle answered the door in scrubs, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that was coming loose. She looked tired. She always looked tired. Hey. Hey. She stepped aside to let him in. The apartment was small. Living room with a couch that sagged in the middle, a TV on a stand that had seen better days, a kitchen table covered in papers and mail. It smelled like coffee and something vaguely burnt. Toast, maybe. Liam was at the table, head in his hands, staring at his math worksheet like it had personally offended him. Liam, Noelle said. Graham's here to help. Liam looked up. Oh, cool. Graham pulled out a chair, sat down across from him. Let's see what you're working on. Liam slid the worksheet over. Fractions, adding and subtracting with different denominators. Graham looked at the problems, then at Liam's work. He'd gotten the first 2 right, then everything after that was wrong. Okay, Graham said. Show me how you're doing it. Liam walked him through the process, explaining each step with the kind of confidence that came from not realizing you were doing it wrong. When he finished, he looked at Graham expectantly. So? You're skipping a step. No, I'm not. Yeah, you are. Here. Graham grabbed the pencil, wrote out the problem on a blank piece of paper. You got to find a common denominator first, see? Before you add them. Liam frowned. That's what my mom said. Your mum's right. But it's annoying. Yeah, math's annoying. Then why do we have to do it? Because... Graham stopped, thought about it. Honestly, I don't know, but you still got to pass 3rd grade. Liam laughed. It was the first time Graham had heard him really laugh, not a polite chuckle, but an actual surprised laugh that came from somewhere real. Graham felt something loosen in his chest. They worked through the rest of the problems together. Liam got frustrated twice, crumpled up a piece of paper once, but eventually he figured it out. When he finished the last problem, he held up the worksheet like a trophy. Done. Nice work. Can I play now? Noelle, who'd been standing in the kitchen pretending not to watch, nodded. Half an hour. Then dinner. Liam bolted for his room. A second later, Graham heard the sound of a video game starting up. Noelle sat down in the chair Liam had vacated. Thanks. It's just fractions. Still. She looked at him. He doesn't ask for help, usually. He just sits there and gets mad until he figures it out himself. That sounds familiar. Yeah, I wonder where he gets it. She smiled slightly. You want coffee? It's old, but it's caffeinated. Sure. She got up, poured 2 mugs, brought them back to the table. They sat there in silence for a minute, the sound of Liam's game drifting from the other room. He told me something yesterday, Noelle said finally. Yeah? He said he was glad you didn't leave. Graham set his mug down carefully. He said that? Not in those words. He said... She paused. He said it's cool having someone who knows about stuff like soccer and math. Someone who isn't me. Noelle, I'm not offended. She wrapped her hands around her mug. I'm relieved. I've been doing this alone for 8 years. It's been... She stopped. It's been hard. He'd known that abstractly, but hearing her say it out loud was different. I should have been here, he said. Yeah, you should have. She looked at him. But you're here now, that's what matters. Is it enough? She didn't answer right away, just stared into her coffee like it might have the answer she was looking for. I don't know yet, she said finally. Ask me again in a few months. Thanksgiving came. Noelle asked if he wanted to have dinner with them. Nothing big, just the 3 of them. A small turkey, the kind of meal you threw together when you didn't have the time or money for anything elaborate. Graham brought wine and a pie he'd bought from a grocery store bakery. Noelle laughed when she saw it. What? Nothing. It's just... She shook her head. I don't know. I pictured you showing up with something fancy. This is very normal. I'm trying to be normal. I can tell. They ate at the small kitchen table, elbows bumping, plates overlapping. Liam talked about school, about his soccer team, about a kid in his class who could burp the alphabet. Normal kid stuff. Graham listened, asked questions, tried not to look as out of place as he felt. After dinner, they watched a movie. Some animated thing Liam picked that Graham didn't follow because he spent most of it watching Liam instead. The way he laughed at the jokes. The way he leaned against Noelle without thinking about it. The way he glanced over at Graham occasionally, like he was checking to make sure he was still there. When the movie ended, Liam went to bed without being asked. Noelle disappeared into his room to say goodnight, and Graham stood in the living room, hands in his pockets, unsure if he should stay or go. She came back out 10 minutes later. He's out. Already? He crashes hard after big days. She sat on the couch, patted the cushion next to her. Sit. He did. They sat there in the semi-dark, the only light coming from the kitchen. The TV was off. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. This is weird, Noelle said finally. What is? This. You being here. It feeling... She hesitated. Normal. Is that bad? I don't know. She pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapped her arms around them. I spent so long being angry at you. And then you showed up. And I thought I'd still be angry. But I'm just... She stopped. Tired and confused. And I don't know what I'm supposed to feel anymore. Graham turned toward her. You don't have to feel anything. That's not how it works. I know. She looked at him. Her eyes were dark in the dim light, but he could see the exhaustion there, the weight of years spent holding everything together alone. I'm scared, she said quietly. Of what? That you'll leave again. That Liam will get attached and then you'll realize this is too hard, and you'll go back to Denver and we'll be right back where we started. Except worse, because now he knows what he's missing. I'm not leaving. You don't know that. Yeah, I do. She shook her head. You can't promise that. I'm not promising. I'm just... He stopped, tried to find the right words. I'm choosing to stay. Every day. That's all I can do. She studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she reached over and took his hand. He looked down at their hands, hers small and rough from work, his larger, softer. He couldn't remember the last time someone had held his hand, couldn't remember the last time he'd let someone this close. You're different, she said. How? I don't know. Quieter. More... She searched for the word. Present. I'm trying. I can tell. They sat like that for a while, not talking, just existing in the same space. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't anything really. Just two people who'd screwed up and were trying to figure out what came next. Eventually, Noel let go of his hand. "You should go, it's late." "Yeah." He stood. She walked him to the door. "Graham." He turned. "Thank you for staying." "You don't have to thank me." "Yeah, I do." He left. Drove back to his apartment with the windows down, the November air finally cool enough to be pleasant. When he got home, he sat on the edge of his bed and pulled out his phone. There was an email from his board. They wanted to know his long-term plans, needed to restructure his role if he wasn't coming back. He typed out a response, deleted it, typed it again. "I'm staying in Nevada, indefinitely. Let's talk about making this permanent." He hit send. Then he lay back and stared at the ceiling, listening to the silence of an apartment that didn't feel like home yet but might eventually, if he let it. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, Graham showed up at Noelle's apartment with a toolkit he'd bought the night before. "What's this?" she asked when she opened the door. "You said your bathroom sink leaks." Yeah, but I'm gonna fix it." She stared at him. "You know how to fix a sink?" "No, but there's YouTube." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Okay, sure, go for it." It took him 2 hours and 3 different videos, but he fixed it. And when he was done, Liam asked if he could help fix the wobbly table leg. So he did that too. Small things, manageable things, the kind of things you did when you were building something instead of running from it. When he left that afternoon, Noelle walked him to his car. "You're really doing this, hon," she said. "Yeah." "The sink, the table, the homework, all of it." "Yeah." She crossed her arms, but she was smiling. "You're terrible at plumbing." "I know, but you're good at showing up." He looked at her. "That's all I know how to do right now." "It's enough." She turned to go back inside, then stopped. "Same time next week?" "For what?" "Math homework. He's got a test on Monday." "I'll be here." She nodded. "Okay." She went inside. Graham got in his car, but he didn't start the engine right away. Just sat there, hands on the wheel, watching the apartment building in his rearview mirror. Liam appeared in the window, waved. Graham waved back. Then he started the car and drove home. 18 months later. The apartment on Eastern Avenue looked different now. Small changes, mostly. A new couch that didn't sag in the middle. A bookshelf Graham had built, badly, but it stood. Liam's art projects covering the refrigerator. A coffee maker that actually worked. The leak in the bathroom sink hadn't come back. Graham's toolkit sat in the hall closet now, next to Noelle's winter coats and Liam's outgrown cleats. He had his own key, his own spot at the kitchen table, his own mug. The blue one Liam had picked out because it matched his soccer jersey. It still wasn't his apartment, but it felt more like home than any place he'd lived in the past decade. It was a Saturday morning in April, the kind of morning where the heat hadn't kicked in yet, and the sky was that perfect shade of blue that made you forget you lived in the desert. Liam had a game at 9. Graham showed up at 8:30 with coffee for Noelle and a Gatorade for Liam. They piled into Noelle's car, the AC finally fixed, 6 months after Graham had offered to pay for it, and she'd finally, reluctantly, agreed. The drive to the soccer fields was familiar now. They'd made this trip dozens of times, Liam in the back seat talking about strategy, Noelle half listening while she drove, Graham watching the city pass by the window. Normal, unremarkable, exactly what he'd never known he wanted. At the field, Liam jogged off to warm up with his team. Noelle set up her chair. Graham set up his next to hers, close enough that their arms brushed when they reached for their water bottles. "He's nervous," Noelle said, watching Liam stretch. "How can you tell?" "He keeps pulling at his jersey. He does that when he's anxious." Graham looked closer. She was right. Liam was tugging at the hem of his shirt, scanning the other team like he was trying to calculate something. "He'll be fine," Graham said. "I know. Doesn't stop me from worrying." The game started. Liam played well, better than well. He scored twice, assisted on another goal. And when the final whistle blew, his team had won 3-1. He ran over, face flushed, grinning so wide it looked like it hurt. "Did you see?" he asked breathlessly. "We saw," Noelle said, pulling him into a hug even though he was sweaty and gross. "Both goals?" "Both goals." Liam looked at Graham. "What did you think?" "I think you're getting scary good at this." Coach says I might make the travel team next year. You should. Liam's grin got impossibly wider. Cool. He ran off to celebrate with his teammates, leaving Noel and Graham standing there with their chairs tucked under their arms. Travel team means weekends out of town, Noel said quietly. I know. You'd have to. I'll be there. He looked at her. Whatever it takes. I'll be there. She studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay. That afternoon they went to a diner off Boulder Highway, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and laminated menus and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting in the pot since 6 a.m. Liam ordered pancakes even though it was 2 in the afternoon. Graham got a burger. Noel picked at a salad, stealing fries off both their plates when she thought they weren't looking. So, Liam said, mouthful of pancake, are you guys like... together now? Noel nearly choked on her water. What? You and Graham. You're together, right? Graham and Noel looked at each other. They'd been careful, no labels, no big conversations about what this was, just time, proximity, showing up. Graham had kissed her once 3 months ago, standing in her kitchen after Liam had gone to bed. It had been brief, tentative. She'd kissed him back, then pulled away, said she needed to think. They hadn't talked about it since. But Liam was 9 now, almost 10, and observant. Too observant. It's complicated, Noel said finally. That means yes, Liam said matter-of-factly. It means complicated, Liam shrugged. Whatever, I don't care, I just wanted to know. He went back to his pancakes like he hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of lunch. Graham looked at Noel. She was staring at her salad, a faint pink rising in her cheeks. We should probably talk about that, he said quietly. Probably. Later. Yeah, later. Later came that night. After Liam had gone to bed and they were sitting on the couch in the semi-dark, the TV on mute, some movie neither of them was watching. So, Noel said. So. He's not wrong. Graham turned to look at her. No. I mean... She pulled her knees up. We're not together. Not officially, but you're here all the time and I... She stopped. I don't hate it. High praise. She smiled despite herself. I'm serious. I know. She was quiet for a moment, picking at a loose thread on the couch cushion. I'm still scared. I know that too. But I'm less scared than I was. She looked at him. You've been here for 18 months. You moved, you changed your whole life, you fixed my sink. Badly. It doesn't leak anymore, that's all that matters. She took a breath. I think maybe I'm ready to stop waiting for you to leave. I'm not leaving. I know. I'm starting to actually believe it. Graham reached over, took her hand. She let him, laced her fingers through his and held on. I don't know what this looks like, he said. I've never done this before, the whole family thing. But I want to figure it out. With you, if you'll let me. She was quiet for a long time, then finally, okay, yeah, okay. She squeezed his hand. But if you screw this up, I won't. You don't know that. No, but I'm going to try really hard not to. She smiled. It was small, cautious, but it was real. That's all I'm asking. 3 months later, Graham signed a lease on a house, not far from Noel's apartment. 3 bedrooms, a backyard with space for a soccer goal, a garage where he could keep his tools and Liam could keep his bike. He didn't ask them to move in, not yet. But the second bedroom had Liam's name on it, unofficially, and the master bedroom had space for someone who might eventually want to share it. Baby steps, that's what Noel called it. Graham called it building something that wouldn't fall apart the first time it got hard. On a quiet Sunday morning in late July, Graham sat in the backyard of his new house, watching Liam practice penalty kicks against the goal they'd set up the week before. Noel was inside, doing something in the kitchen. She'd started leaving a toothbrush at his place. Started staying over on weekends when Liam asked if they could have breakfast together. Started looking at him like maybe, just maybe, this could work. Liam missed a shot, groaned dramatically, then reset the ball to try again. You're pulling left, Graham called. I know, so stop pulling left. I'm trying. Graham got up, walked over. Here, like this. He showed him the angle, The follow-through. Liam tried again. This time the ball sailed straight into the corner of the net. Yes! Liam pumped his fist. Graham ruffled his hair. Nice. Liam grinned up at him. Thanks, Dad. The word hung in the air. Dad. It was the first time Liam had said it. Graham felt something crack open in his chest, something warm and terrifying and more real than anything he'd ever felt in his life. Yeah, he said quietly. Any time. Liam ran to retrieve the ball, already lining up another shot. Graham stood there, hands in his pockets, watching. Inside, through the kitchen window, he could see Noelle. She was watching too. When their eyes met, she smiled. Not a cautious smile, not a scared one, just a smile. He smiled back. A final word. Some love stories don't start with a spark. They start with a choice. The choice to stay when leaving would be easier. The choice to show up, even when you don't know what you're doing. The choice to build something slow and imperfect and real. Graham didn't get his son's first 8 years. He missed birthdays and first days of school and soccer games and bedtime stories. He missed all of it. But he showed up for year 9 and 10 and every year after that. Not because it erased the past, it didn't, but because some things, some people, are worth the work of becoming who you should have been all along. Noelle learned that love doesn't have to be reckless to be real. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let someone prove themselves, one small choice at a time. And Liam learned that family isn't just who's there from the beginning. Sometimes it's who chooses to stay. What would you do if someone from your past showed up, wanting a second chance they didn't earn? Would you give it to them, or would you protect what you've built alone? Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Not every love story starts with a spark. Some start with a choice. The choice to stay when leaving would be easier. If you felt something watching this, drop a like and subscribe. More real stories coming your way.